Emergency alert. Federal Emergency Management Agency. National level exercise. This is not an exercise. Nuclear detonation confirmed. Multiple locations. Seek immediate shelter. Do not go outside. This message will repeat.
At 0917 on a Tuesday in October, the tone hits. 1000 hertz, 2-second pulse, 3-second interval, repeating. I have heard it in training exercises 43 times. I have never heard it in fact. My body does not know the difference. My chair is back and I am on my feet before I have processed the sound consciously. The training, doing what training is built to do. The gap between stimulus and response closed by repetition until it isn't a gap anymore, just a motion. The room moves. This is what I have spent 22 years preparing for, not the event, but the room's response to the event, the choreography of trained people doing trained things in the correct sequence. The duty officer is on the secure line. The watch commander has the geographic display up. The communications team is running the cascade check. Someone has hit the emergency lighting protocol and the room has gone to red mode. The overhead fluorescence killed. The backup lighting giving everything the flat red cast of a room I have been in 43 times in exercises and never in fact until now. Step 1. Confirm. I go to the data terminal. I confirm the signal source. I confirm the authentication code. I confirm that the signal is not an exercise. There is a protocol for distinguishing exercise activations from actual activations, and I run it, and the result is unambiguous. This is not an exercise. Step 2. Classify. I read the incoming data. Event type, nuclear detonation. Geographic scope, multiple locations. Threat tier, national. The classification takes 40 seconds. I am aware that it is taking 40 seconds. I complete the classification. Step 3. Initiate response. I pick up the radio. I announce my sector. I begin the response cascade. I do not think about Missouri. I cannot think about Missouri. When the national emergency tier was declared, the automated lockdown engaged. I tried the blast doors 20 minutes ago. 12 inches of reinforced steel, magnetic locked, tied to the radiation sensors. The override panel is dead. The ventilation is cycling internal air only. I'm not staying because I am choosing the job over my family. I'm staying because the bunker has decided I am not leaving. The protocol isn't an excuse to hide. It is a cage. At 0931, the targeting data comes through the classified feed. The data is a list. I read the list the way I read every list, start to finish, no skimming, because skimming is how you miss the thing that matters. The list has 37 entries, city names, coordinates, target classifications. I read to entry 14. St. Louis, MO. I read to entry 22. Kansas City, MO. I set the tablet down. Judith's parents live east of St. Louis. I have driven there twice. Once when Noah was 4 and Clara was newborn, a Christmas visit, the highway through Illinois in December, salt on the road, Noah asleep in the car seat with his mouth open, the way children sleep, completely, without reservation. Once when Clara was 9 and Ben was 2, a summer visit, the heat, the smell of the Midwest in July, Judith narrating the landscape for the children, whether they were listening or not, as if describing the world to them was a way of keeping it together for herself. I know the highway. I know the exit. I know the house has a red door and a dog whose name I cannot remember. Something short, one syllable. An old dog now may be gone. I pick up the tablet. I read entries 14 and 22 again. I read them a third time. The blast radius for a ground strike on St. Louis covers the eastern suburbs. I know this. I have known the blast radius tables for 22 years. I know them the way I know the dosimeter scales and the suit integrity protocols and the decontamination procedures, not as facts I have to look up, as facts that are part of how I understand the world. I do not have to calculate. I know. I pick up the radio. I continue the response cascade. I'm on step 7 of 12. I complete step 7. I begin step 8. At 0941, the first confirmed detonation data arrives. The bunker physically shudders. A deep sub-bass thud that I feel in my back teeth before I hear it. The drop ceiling tiles rattle. Dust falls in a fine gray snow that settles on the keyboards and the monitors and the shoulders of the duty officer's uniform. The fluorescent lights flicker, die, and then the red mode backup lighting kicks in again, painting everyone the color of raw meat. Someone in the room screams. A short, sharp sound cut off immediately by the training taking over. But the scream happened. It was real. The air in the bunker changes. It tastes like ozone and copper, the smell of electrical systems that just took a massive power surge, and underneath that, something else. Something mineral and wrong. The smell of a world that has been opened up in a way it was not built to be opened. I'm on step 10. I read the detonation data, geographic coordinates, yield estimate. Time of detonation, 0941. It happened while I was on step 8. It happened while I was doing the job. The coordinates correspond to St. Louis. The yield estimate corresponds to a weapon that produces a blast radius I have known by memory for 22 years. At 0941, somewhere in the eastern suburbs of that city, a house with a red door was either standing or not standing, and the people inside it were either alive or not alive, and I am underground, and the system has no windows, and the answer is a fact that exists in Missouri, and I am not in Missouri. I complete step 10. I begin step 11. I complete step 11. I begin step 12. I write the sector report on the secure terminal, incident classification, sector status, response actions initiated, personnel deployed, resources requested. I fill in each field, I review each field, I submit it. I put down the radio. I pick up my phone. No text from Clara. I called Judith last night at 21:14. The call lasted 12 minutes. Ben answered because Ben at 7 years old still treats a ringing phone as an event requiring immediate physical response. Ben talked for 4 minutes about a video game, something being built and something being defended. I didn't fully follow it. I didn't ask for clarification because the explaining was the point, not the explanation. His voice, when he is excited, the way it speeds up, subject, verb, no articles, as if the information is moving faster than the grammar. Then Judith took the phone. 8 minutes. The drive out to her parents, the traffic, her mother's hip, her father being helpful in ways that created more work. The kids were fine. Noah had left for the baseball tournament 2 hours from her parents' house in the other direction, staying with a teammate's family. Clara was Clara, which meant she was reading something and had said approximately 40 words in 2 days. I said, "Love you." She said, "You too." She said it the way she said it when she meant it and was also doing something else at the same time. I hung up. I wrote the time in my notebook, 21:26. The call log is still open on my phone because I forgot to close it. I look at it now. 12 minutes. I close it. I put the phone face down. I look at the room, which is still running, the choreography continuing past the 12 steps, because the 12 steps are the initiation, and what comes after is everything else. I'm the senior field commander in the room. I have things to do. I open the next task in the protocol. I read it. I begin. Somewhere in Missouri, at 0941, something happened that I will spend the next year calculating. Not yet. I do the next thing. The coordination center is a different room than it was yesterday. Same walls, same drop ceilings, same fluorescent lights that came back on after the red mode protocol stood down, same coffee machine in the corner, same recycled air. But a room is also its function, and the function has changed, and so the room has changed. The way a hospital waiting room is a different room depending on what you are waiting to hear. I know what I am waiting to hear. I know that what I am waiting to hear may not come, and if it comes, it may not come for a long time. And in the time between now and then, I have a sector to run, and a deployment sequence to manage, and a cascade of protocols that do not pause for the person running them to do anything except the next thing. I do the next thing. Hour 1. The communication cascade. Who is reachable? Who isn't? The network map updates every 15 minutes, and each update is a geography lesson. Here is what the network looks like now. Here are the dark sections. Here is where the dark sections are on a map of the United States. I read the map with my professional eyes, which see dark sections as infrastructure failures, signal loss, node collapse. I read the map with the other set of eyes, the ones I have been carrying since 0931, which see dark sections as places. Missouri is not entirely dark. The network has partial function, some nodes up, some degraded, some gone. The Eastern St. Louis corridor has 3 nodes. At hour 1, 2 are dark and 1 is degraded. I log this. I move to the next task. Hour 6. I put on the suit for the first time. Full hazmat, level A, the suit-up sequence, I have run more times than I can count, systematically, each step confirmed before moving to the next. The rubber seals lock with a snap that sounds like a bone setting. The air inside the suit smells like old sweat and industrial plastic, the self-contained breathing apparatus hissing softly against my back. I check each step. I move to the next step. My team deploys to the primary assessment zone. I am the team lead. We step out of the decontamination lock and into the open air for the first time since the event. The sky is wrong. It is not gray. It is a sickly, bruised, yellow-green, the color of an old bruise fading, the color of a sky that has been filled with something it was not built to hold. The air is thick with particulate. Ash is falling, not wood ash, not the ash of a campfire, but gray, heavy flakes of vaporized concrete and steel and glass and things I do not think about because thinking about what the ash is made of would stop me from moving through it. It settles on the shoulders of my suit like dirty snow. I brush it off. It does not brush off. It clings, electrostatic, the way fallout clings to surfaces it has been designed to cling to. And I understand in my body before I understand it in my mind that this ash is the blast radius, that I am standing inside the dispersion zone of a nuclear weapon. that the snow falling on my shoulders is what is left of the things that were in the fireball. The dosimeter ticks. It ticks fast. The sound is like a Geiger counter in a horror movie, but there is nothing fictional about the needle climbing into the yellow zone of the dial. I am standing in a dead zone. Everything organic in my line of sight is gone. The trees are not burned. They are stripped. White, skeletal trunks pointing at the sky like bones, the bark blown off by the shock wave, the wood underneath already gray with the beginning of the death that radiation brings to living wood. The formation is correct. The spacing is correct. The communication intervals are correct. We move through the assessment zone in the pattern I have run in exercises and never in fact. And the difference between exercise and fact is that in exercises the ground is not covered in ash and the trees are not stripped and the dosimeter is not ticking and the sky is not the color of a bruise and the air does not taste like metal when it leaks past the seal of your mask. The seal is intact. I check it. The taste is psychological. I know this. The body does not always distinguish between what it is tasting and what it is afraid it will taste. We take the primary readings. My team logs what they log. I log what I log. There is a divergence between what I log and what I transmit. The divergence is one reading from the eastern perimeter, a number in the acceptable range, but at the high end of the acceptable range. A number that, combined with the wind data and the plume trajectory models I have been running in my head since hour 1, suggests something about what the readings will look like further east in 36 hours. I do not transmit the analysis. I transmit the reading. The reading is accurate. The analysis is mine, and I keep it. At hour 6, I know the following. The eastern perimeter reading is higher than I expected. The wind is from the west at 11 miles per hour. The plume trajectory puts the eastern St. Lucian Louis corridor in the secondary dispersion zone in approximately 36 hours, and the calculation I have been running since 0931 has a new variable. I write the new variable in my notebook. I close the notebook. I take off the suit. I debrief my team. I write the sector report. I do not submit the analysis. Hour 24. I have not slept. Not a decision in the sense of something decided and implemented. A decision in the sense that there have been 18 moments in the last 24 hours when I could have handed off to my deputy and found a cot in the back room, and I did not do any of those things. I did the next task instead. The next task was always available. That is the function of the protocol, to ensure there is always a next task, so the question of what to do is always answered before it becomes a question. At hour 24, I try to reach Judith. I do this at 0940, almost exactly 24 hours after 0941. I dial her cell phone. The Missouri network is still partially dark. The call does not connect. I try twice more. I try the number for her parents' landline, which I have in my notebook. No connection. I try Noah's cell. Noah is 2 hours northwest of St. Louis at the teammate's family's house. 2 hours northwest puts him outside the primary blast radius. It does not put him outside the secondary dispersion zone depending on yield and wind. No connection. I try Clara's cell. I text Clara. One word. The text does not deliver. The indicator shows undelivered. I write the time in my notebook, 0940. Attempted contact, no connection, Missouri network degraded. I close the notebook. I pick up the radio. The calculation I've been running since 0931 has two outputs. The first is a probability range for survival based on blast radius, structural protection, shelter in place, compliance, secondary dispersion exposure, and the medical response capacity of the eastern Missouri region in the first 24 hours. The second is a timeline for when I will have enough data to narrow the range. The range is wide, the timeline is long. I pick up my radio. I continue. Hour 48. I have slept for 4 hours on a cot in the back room. I wake up knowing everything I knew when I went to sleep. The sleep did not change the calculation. The sleep changed my capacity to continue running it. The network map has updated 4 times since I went to sleep. The pattern in Missouri has shifted. Some dark nodes have stayed dark. Some degraded nodes have degraded further. And 3 nodes in the eastern St. Louis corridor have done something unexpected. They have come back online. Partial function, reduced capacity, but are mine. Node restoration in a blast zone means infrastructure is intact enough to support a signal. Infrastructure intact enough to support a signal means the structures in that area sustain the event. Structure sustaining the event means the event in that specific area was at the edge of the impact range, not the center. I read this 3 times to make sure I am reading it correctly and not reading it the way I want to read it. I read it correctly. I also want to read it that way. Both of these things are true. I tried to reach Judith again. No connection on any of the 4 numbers. The text to Clara is still undelivered. I write the time. I close the notebook. At hour 48, the external radiation sensors registered a drop in ambient fallout. The automated lockdown partially disengaged, unsealing the external blast doors for emergency response deployment. I assigned myself to the northern boundary field assessment instead of sending my deputy, because the northern boundary requires a drive, and the drive requires me to be outside and above ground, and I have been underground for 47 of the last 48 hours, and my body needs to be in open air, even if the open air is not clean, in the way it used to be clean. I suit up. I drive north. The road runs through what was, 2 days ago, an ordinary stretch of industrial corridor, rail yard on the left, distribution warehouses on the right, a water treatment facility a mile further. The road is still the road. The rail yard is still the rail yard. But the sky is still the wrong color, and the ash is still falling, and the warehouses have the specific look of buildings that were hit by a shockwave but not by fire. Walls standing, windows gone, the interiors exposed to the weather like a dollhouse with the front removed. On the drive back, I pass a gas station that is closed, a diner that is closed, a hardware store with the lights still on and nobody inside. I pass a school, a single-story brick building with a playground attached, the kind of school that has a marquee sign out front with movable letters. The sign says, "Go Eagles, Regional Championship, Oct. 14. I drive past it. In my rearview mirror, the sign gets smaller and then it is gone. Ben's school has a sign like that. Judith told me about the walk they take together in the mornings, the route that goes past the park, 3 minutes longer, but Ben prefers it. She told me 6 weeks ago, on a Tuesday night call, what Ben had said about a dog they saw in the park. The words he used. I drive back to the coordination center. I park. I take off the suit. I log the readings. I write the sector report. I do not write about the school sign in the sector report. I write it in my notebook. Hour 72. The sector is running. The deployment sequence is running, the reports are filed and the readings are logged and my team is functioning and the protocol has generated enough next tasks to carry me through the next 72 hours without a gap. At hour 72, I am in the coordination center at 2114, exactly 48 hours after I called Judith, and I have a cup of cold coffee and my notebook and my radio. The radio doesn't need answering right now. There is no next task at this exact moment. The shift handoff is in 11 minutes. For 11 minutes, I am a man sitting at a table with a cup of cold coffee and no next task. I sit with it. 2 of the overhead fluorescent panels have been flickering since day 1, not enough to affect the work, enough to notice, and they are flickering now, the same slow, irregular blink. I have been looking at them for 72 hours without looking at them, the way you stop seeing things that are always there. I look at them now. I think about the 12 minutes, Ben explaining the video game, something being built and something being defended. His voice when he is excited, the way it speeds up, subject, verb, no articles, as if the information is moving faster than the grammar. I think about Judith saying, "You too," the warmth of it. The way she was already doing something else when she said it, already managing the next thing, already moving. She was always moving. She moved through rooms the way light moves through rooms, arriving at the thing that needed her next. I think about Clara's thumbs up emoji, both of them, the same response to both of my texts. It is not enough, and it is also exactly her. I would know her from that single character in a lineup of single characters. Somehow I find this thought the hardest one to hold. I think about Noah answering on the second ring. Yeah. The economy of it, the implication that yes is so obvious it barely needs saying. I do not know if any of them are alive. I had been carrying this sentence since 0931. It was in the room with me when I gave the deployment brief, and when I took the hour 6 readings, and when I tried to reach Judith, and when I drove past the school, and when I wrote the Northern Boundary Report. It has been in every room I have been in for 72 hours. I had been doing the job in the same space as the sentence, working around it, working past it, doing the next task, because the next task was always there. The next task is not there right now. Right now there is the sentence, and the cold coffee, and the flickering panels, and me. I sit with the sentence. It does not get smaller. I did not think it would get smaller. I sat with it because it was there, and because I had 11 minutes, and because the job, the protocol, the next task, none of these are a reason not to know what I know. They are what I do while knowing it. There is a difference. I have been using them interchangeably for 72 hours, and right now, in 11 minutes of no next task, I can feel the difference. I do not know if any of them are alive. I know the calculation has a range. I know the range has a margin. I know the margin is wide enough to contain survival. It is also wide enough to contain the other thing. I sit with both until the 11 minutes are done. Then I pick up the notebook. I open it to today's entries. I find the reading I didn't transmit at hour 6. I look at it. I look at the analysis I wrote next to it, the plume trajectory, the secondary dispersion model, the conclusion I haven't drawn in transmitted form. I draw it now. In the notebook. Not in the system. Mine. I close the notebook. I pick up the radio. I call in my position. I begin the next shift. 6 months changes what the job looks like. The acute phase is over. The ash has stopped falling. The sky is still not the color it was. It is paler, washed out, as if the blue has been thinned by whatever was put into it. But it is no longer the bruised yellow-green of the first weeks. The emergency has settled into the specific kind of routine that exists only in places where the emergency is permanent but no longer new. The coordination center runs on schedules now instead of adrenaline. The coffee is still not hot enough. I drink it anyway. The calculation has not closed. The range has narrowed. The data I have gathered over 6 months, the radiation readings, the plume trajectory confirmations, the decay curves that tell me what the dispersion looks like now versus what it looked like at hour 6, has tightened the probability range. But it has not closed it. The margin still contains survival. It still contains the other thing. I have been doing the job in the same space as the margin for 6 months. My body is paying for it. The blood pressure reading I took this morning is elevated above my 90-day baseline. I know this because I take my own readings. I have not asked the medical officer for the information through official channels because asking would put the number in a chart, and the chart is a document, and a document is a thing that someone reads, and I am not ready for someone to read my body the way I read a monitoring station, as a data point, as a piece of the picture, as a number in a column. I take my own readings. I track my own exposure. I log my own hours. I am, in the clinical language of the protocol, self-monitoring. In the human language of what is actually happening, I am a man who has decided that the information matters enough to collect and not enough to share. At the 6-month medical clearance, the doctor, Major Elena Ruiz, a woman with handwriting so clear it looks like it was printed, takes my blood pressure and notes the elevation. She asks about sleep. I say 4 to 6 hours, mostly continuous. She asks about appetite. I say adequate. She asks if there are things I'm not sleeping through. She asks what hour. I say 0300 to 0400. She writes this in the chart. She writes one more thing in the notation column that she does not explain to me. I do not ask what she is writing. A man who self-monitors his blood pressure and his caloric intake and his exposure levels and does not ask what the doctor is writing in his chart has decided that the chart is her domain and he will not encroach on it. She signs the clearance form. She checks the box cleared. She adds a sentence to the findings summary, recommend rotation relief per protocol. I fold the form once along its horizontal axis and put it in my breast pocket. I have been in continuous field rotation for 6 months. The protocol recommends rotation relief at the 6-month mark. I am aware of the recommendation. I am not on a departure schedule. The doctor says, "Is there a plan for the rotation?" I say, "There's a plan." She waits. I don't elaborate. I leave. I go back to the coordination center. I pick up the radio. I do the next task. The thing I did not transmit at hour 6, the eastern perimeter reading, the wind data, the plume trajectory, I carried it for 6 months. The trajectory moved in the direction I calculated. The readings from the boundary confirmed the model. I had a picture of what the dispersion looked like and where it had gone and what it meant for the eastern Missouri region. I did not transmit the analysis. I kept it in my notebook. The notebook has become a thing I carry the way I carry the radio, part of the operational kit, always on my person, always within reach. It is a right-in-the-rain all-weather field book with a dark green cover. I have filled 11 of them in 6 months. They are in a footlocker under my cot. They are not in the system. What is in the system is the readings, the reports, the sector status, the deployment logs. Everything the protocol requires is in the system. Everything the protocol does not require, the analysis, the calculations, the things I know about Missouri that I have not put into a transmitted document, is in the notebooks. I know what this means. I have been a field commander for 22 years, and I know what it means when a man starts keeping two sets of records. It means the official record and the true record have diverged, and the man keeping them has decided that the divergence is his to carry and that carrying it alone is preferable to the alternative, which is handing it to a system that might close the margin in a direction he is not ready for it to close. I carry it. I do the next task. The network status report lands on my screen every morning. 641 active nodes, 3 held dark, signal strength averaging 62% of pre-event baseline. The numbers change by small increments, a station restored here, a station degraded there, the slow geography of a network recovering from what was done to it. Dana Osei runs the communications division. She has been logging every station since day one, every restoration, every degradation, every dark entry marked with a capital D, and the timestamp and the cause. 4,000 entries. She knows the network the way I know the radiation map, as a geography, a landscape of signal and silence. I go to her for the monthly network review. We go through the summary, 6 items. She gives me precise data. I ask precise questions. We are operating in a register we have both been trained to operate in, the register of people who know that the quality of the work depends on the quality of the data. At the end of the 6th item, she closes her log. I do not leave. She waits. She knows the shape of a conversation that is finished, and the shape of a conversation that is about to change direction. She has been reading signal and silence for 6 months. She can read it in a room. I say, I have a direct query about the Missouri corridor. My voice is the same voice it has been for the entire meeting, the same register. She says, yes. I give her the coordinates, not the city, not the region, the coordinates, a 7-mile radius centered on a point east of St. Louis. I am not approximating, I know the coordinates. She pulls up the Missouri corridor section of her log. She has it in her working memory, but she goes to the log anyway, because the log is the record, and the record is what she gives, not her memory. She reads me the log. The eastern St. Louis corridor had 14 stations in the 7-mile radius. 11 went dark within the first 2 hours. 1 degraded to partial function in week 1 and went dark in week 4. 2 stations came back online. The first restoration was in week 3, a signal at reduced strength from the northeastern edge of the radius. The second was in week 7, a stronger signal near the center of the radius that has held and strengthened slightly since. 2 restored, 12 dark. The restored stations mean infrastructure standing. Infrastructure standing means the northeastern and central areas sustained the event, not undamaged, but standing. The 12 dark stations she cannot characterize without additional field data. Dark means dark. Dark means the last signal was at the time she logged it, and she has not had a signal since. She reads me this the way she gives me everything, precisely, without summary, without interpretation. She is not confirmed. She does not tell me what the log does not contain. The log does not contain names. The log does not contain specific addresses. The log does not contain the information that would allow her to tell me what I actually want to know, which is whether the specific address in my next of kin file is in the coverage area of a restored station or a dark station. I know where the address is. I have known since week 1. The address is in the coverage area of a dark station. She reads me the log. She does not tell me about the address. She does not tell me because the log does not tell her about the address. The log tells her about stations. Stations tell her about infrastructure. Infrastructure tells her about the area in aggregate. The address is a point within the aggregate, and the aggregate survival does not tell me whether the point survived. The log is accurate. She reads me the accurate log. I say, the week 7 restoration, the central corridor station. What kind of infrastructure would need to be functional for that station to restore? She says, the station runs on a combination of grid power and a backup generator. For the station to restore, either grid power was restored or the backup generator was manually activated. She says, manual generator activation requires a person. I say, yes. She says it also requires the generator to have fuel. The generators in that station type have a capacity of approximately 3 weeks of continuous operation on a full tank. The station came back online in week 7. I say, so the generator was either refueled or the grid power was partially restored. She says, or both. The station signal doesn't carry that information. I say, but a person was there. She says at some point, yes. For the station to come back online at week 7, someone was at that location in the first 7 weeks. I let this sit. I say, I have the coordinates of a residential address in the northeastern edge of the radius. I give her the coordinates. She looks at the map. She says, Station 74 Alpha. That station is in the restored group. Week 3 restoration. Current signal strength, 51% of baseline. I don't say anything for a moment. She says, has the signal at 74 Alpha been continuous since week 3? She goes back to the log. 3 brief interruptions. Week 5, 4 hours. Week 9, 90 minutes. Week 11, 6 hours. All 3 followed by restoration to the same signal strength. I say, consistent with the generator. She says, consistent with the generator running low on fuel and being refueled. Yes. I am quiet. She does not fill the silence. She has learned over 6 months that silence is data too. I say, thank you, Sergeant. She says, Commander. I stand. She says the log is available to you directly. I'll add you to the direct access list. I say, yes, thank you. I go. I sit at my desk. The network map is on my screen. Station 74 Alpha is a green marker at 51%. Someone refueled that generator. Someone was there in the first 7 weeks with fuel and operational knowledge and a reason to turn a generator on. 3 interruptions since week 3, 3 refuelings. Someone has been maintaining that station for 6 months. I do not know who. The margin is still open. The calculation I have been running since 0931 has a new variable, and the variable is this. Someone is alive in the coverage area of Station 74 Alpha, and Station 74 Alpha covers the neighborhood where Judith's parents' house is, and the house has a red door. I pick up my notebook. I write, Station 74 Alpha, Week 3 restoration, 3 refueling events, manual operation, margin still open. I close the notebook. I pick up the radio. I do the next task. The authorization request is straightforward. The Eastern St. Louis corridor data is relevant to the regional projection. I am the sector commander whose field access extends closest to the corridor's monitoring points. The field assessment has a legitimate operational justification that I write in 2 sentences and submit to my regional coordinator. The coordinator approves it. The operational justification is real. The data need is real. I would have done this assessment at some point regardless. I am doing it now because the data need is real and because the calculation has been running for 11 months. And because Dana Osei told me about Station 74 Alpha, and I have been sitting with what she told me for 3 weeks, and I have reached the point where sitting with it is no longer the same as not going. I suit up at 0600. I do the suit up sequence in the correct order. I sign out the vehicle and the equipment. I load the monitoring kit and the dosimeter and the photographic equipment and the field notebook and the assessment form. I make sure the radio is charged and the backup radio is charged. I do all of this because the protocol requires it, and because I do not cut corners on the protocol. The protocol is the thing that keeps you alive in the zone, and I am going into a zone. I get in the vehicle. I drive east. The highway exit is intact. I take it. I have driven this exit twice. The first time Noah was 4 and Clara was newborn and the car was full of the specific chaos of a young family driving to Christmas at the grandparents'. The second time Clara was 9 and Ben was 2, and Judith was narrating the landscape for the children, whether they were listening or not, as if describing the world to them was a way of keeping it together for herself. I know this road the way my hands know a steering wheel they have held before, not consciously, in the muscle, in the part of the body that remembers a curve before the eyes confirm it. The county road is passable, not undamaged, but passable, the pavement cracked in a pattern I have seen in zones where the shock wave passed through. The cracks run in one general direction. I know which direction the shock wave came from. The cracks are consistent. The sky today is the washed-out pale it has been for months, not the bruised yellow-green of the first weeks, but not the blue it was before. The sun is visible but diffuse, the light reaching the ground through a permanent haze that the meteorologists say will take years to fully clear. The light has no memory. It falls on this road the same way it falls on every road. I drive into the residential grid. The suburb has a name I know and that I am not going to say out loud in this truck because saying it would make it a place I am assessing rather than a place I have been, and I am not here to assess it. The streets are laid out the way streets were laid out in the 70s, cul-de-sacs, curved roads, houses set back from the curb. A neighborhood built for people who were going to stay. Some of the houses are still standing. Some have their windows blown out and their roof lines intact, the way a person can be standing and still be hurt in ways that don't show from the outside. Some are not standing in any way that means anything anymore. I drive slowly. I pass a bicycle in a driveway, lying on its side, the chain rusted. I pass a garden hose coiled on a front porch with the spray nozzle still attached. I pass a basketball hoop at the end of a driveway, the backboard intact, the net gone. Nobody is here. The evacuation was complete. The suburb has the quality of a stage set after the actors have left. All the props in place, the lighting correct, the scene set for a life that is not currently being lived in it. I turn left. I drive 2 blocks. I turn right. The house is standing. I know it before I see the door. I know it from the roofline, the pitch of it, the chimney sitting slightly off-center, because the builder, in 1974, made a decision that nobody questioned afterward. I have seen this roofline twice. My body knows it the way my body knows the shape of a door I have walked through, the shape of a place that was safe. The front door is red, It has been red since before Judith's parents bought the house. It was red in the photograph she sent me. It is red now. I stop the truck. I sit. The windows are gone. The frames are intact. The openings covered with plywood that someone put there at some point after. Someone was here. Someone came back and covered the windows. The door is closed. I try the handle. It is unlocked. The house has the smell of a structure that has been closed for a long time, not the smell of damage, not the chemical and biological smell of a building that has sustained a catastrophic event, which I know and which I would be able to identify through the suit's filters if it were present. The smell of closure, of a space that has been sealed from the air outside and has been sitting in its own atmosphere for months, the particulates settling, the materials off-gassing at the slow rate of things that are simply existing in a closed space without being disturbed. The house has the smell of a house that was left. I stand in the entry hall, a coat rack on the right, 3 coats still on it, a pair of boots below. A small table on the left with a ceramic bowl, the kind of bowl that is for keys, and the bowl is empty. I move through the house. The living room, furniture in place, a couch and 2 chairs arranged around a low table, a television on the wall still in its mount, the screen cracked but intact, books on a shelf. A knitting basket beside one of the chairs with an unfinished project still on the needles, the yarn running from the basket to the work half complete, the needles at rest, crossed over each other, the way hands rest when they have been set down mid-task. Someone was making something. Someone stopped. A framed photograph on the end table. Judith's parents, summer light, the kind of photograph taken at a family gathering by someone who said, "Smile," and everyone did. They are standing in the backyard of this house. The red door is visible behind them in the photograph. The door is red in the photograph, and it is red now, and the people in the photograph are not here now. I look at this photograph for longer than I should. The kitchen, clean dishes in the rack, sitting on the counter beside the sink in the way that dishes sit when someone washed them and left them to dry. A calendar on the wall. The last marked date is in the week of the event. After that, the calendar is unmarked, the dates proceeding as dates do without anyone marking them. The dining room. The table is set for breakfast, 2 plates, 2 mugs. But the scene is not peaceful. The shockwave hit this house hard. Plaster dust covers the table like a white tablecloth. The window above the sink is blown out, and the glass is scattered across the floor, mixed with the shattered ceramic of a mug that was sitting on the counter when the blast arrived. There is a coffee stain on the wall. Not spilled coffee, that was in a mug when the blast hit, projected horizontally across the room by a wall of compressed air, moving at 700 miles an hour. It hit the wall and it stayed there, a brown, violent splash mark frozen in time. 2 settings, not 5. Judith and her parents. The children were at school, or at a friend's house, or somewhere that a Tuesday morning puts a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old. The table was set for the people who were home. I walk through the glass. It crunches under my boots. The sound is obscene in the silence of this house. I go upstairs. The stairs are intact. The banister is sticky. I look at my glove. It is covered in a dark, resinous residue. I don't know what it is. Sap from the cracked wall or something worse. I don't wipe it off. I keep moving. The bedroom door is open, the bed is made, the pillows aligned, the coverlet smooth. A pair of glasses on the nightstand. A glass of water, still there, the water long evaporated, the glass holding the mineral residue of what was once water. The guest room, 2 single beds. The mattresses are off the frames, thrown against the wall by the concussive wave. On the floor, buried under a layer of plaster dust and shattered glass from the blown window. A backpack. I know the backpack, not this backpack. The type. The size. The school-age utility of it. The pockets and the zippers and the name tag on the handle. I labeled every backpack my children have ever carried. I labeled them because Ben loses things when they are not labeled, and Judith and I made a system, and the system involved labels, and I was the one who applied the labels because my handwriting is the handwriting that stays. I pick up the backpack. It is heavy, heavier than a child's backpack should be, because it is full of the debris that fell on it. I brushed the plaster dust off the front. I read the label. B. Reinhold. My handwriting. On a backpack in a guest room in a house with a red door. I put this label on. I put it on in a kitchen that is not this kitchen, on a morning that was not this morning, and I handed the backpack to my son, and he carried it here, and he set it down on this floor, and he did not pick it up again. I stand beside the backpack for a moment. I set it back down, I photograph it. I write in my notebook, guest room, 2 beds. Child's backpack, labeled B, Reinhold, backpack present, no occupants. I close the notebook. I go back downstairs. I go through the house one more time. The second pass produces nothing new. The house is what it is, standing, empty. The signs of prior occupancy that stopped at a specific point, the breakfast table, the knitting needles, the calendar, the backpack, the coats on the rack. A house that was left in the middle of its ordinary life and has been closed since and has not been occupied since. I go out the front door. I close it behind me. The latch engages. I stand on the front step. I stand on the front step for 4 minutes. I am not counting. I am not calculating. I am not assessing. I am standing on the front step of a house I have been to twice, and that has a red door, and that is standing and empty, and that tells me what empty tells me, which is that they were not here when the assessment was done, and they were not here when the windows were boarded, and they are not here now. Not here is not the same as gone. Not here means they were somewhere at the point when the house became a closed house. The breakfast tells me the leaving was not planned. Planned departures finish the breakfast, or clear the table. The coats on the rack tell me the leaving was done without the coats, which in October means urgent. The backpack on the floor means Ben left without the backpack, which means the departure was urgent enough that the backpack was left, or someone returned for other things but not the backpack. Station 74 Alpha is in the coverage area of this neighborhood. Station 74 Alpha came online in week 3. Someone refueled its generator 3 times. 3 times in 11 months someone was at the station and had fuel, and the operational knowledge to run a generator and a reason to do so. I do not know who. The margin is wide enough to contain survival. It is also wide enough to contain the other thing. I stand with both. I get in the truck. I sit in the driver's seat for 11 minutes. I am not calculating. I am not reviewing the assessment. I am not redoing the notebook, or filling in the notebook, or filling in the field form, or planning the return route, or doing any of the things I do when I have 11 minutes that belong to the job. I'm sitting in a truck in front of a house with a red door. I think about the last phone call, 12 minutes, Ben explaining a video game I didn't fully follow. Something being built and something being defended. He explained it with the certainty of a 7-year-old who assumes you share all his context, and I let him explain it without asking for clarification, because the explaining was the point. His voice, the way it speeds up when he is excited, subject, verb, no articles, as if the information is moving faster than the grammar. I think about Judah saying, "You too," the warmth of it, the way she was already doing something else when she said it, already managing the next thing, already moving. She was always moving. She moved through rooms the way light moves through rooms, arriving at the thing that needed her next. I think about Clara's thumbs up emoji, both of them, the same response to both of my texts. It is not enough, and it is also exactly her. I would know her from that single character in a lineup of single characters. I think about Noah answering on the second ring. Yeah, the economy of it. The implication that yes is so obvious, it barely needs saying. I do not know if any of them are alive. The backpack tells me Ben was here and left. The breakfast tells me Judith and her parents were here and left. The plywood on the windows tells me someone came back. The generator at Station 74 Alpha tells me someone was here 7 weeks after the event with fuel and operational knowledge and a reason to turn a generator on. I do not know who. I do not know where they went. I do not know if they are still going or if they stopped going somewhere and started being somewhere, and that somewhere is a place I have not found yet. The margin is wide enough to contain survival. It is also wide enough to contain the other thing. I sit with both. I sit with them for 11 minutes. Then I start the truck. I drive west. The November sun is in the southwest, and the shadows are long, and the road is the road. I cross back out of Missouri. The road surface changes. The light does not change. The light is the same light it was this morning, the flat Midwest light of a day that does not know what has happened under it. I stop at the remaining monitoring points on the way back. I take the readings. I log them. I photograph the equipment. The readings are consistent with the model. They will be useful to the regional projection. The assessment is legitimate. The data is real. I drive. I arrive at the sector facility at 1642. I park. I sign in the vehicle. I carry the equipment to the decontamination staging area and run the full protocol on everything: the suit, the equipment kit, the monitoring instruments, the camera. I sign off on the decontamination log. I go to my desk. I open the field assessment form. I fill in all 14 fields. The readings, the structural assessments, the photographic log, the equipment status, the monitoring point data. The form is accurate and complete. I do not write what I was looking for. I do not write what I found. I do not write about the red door, or the breakfast table, or the backpack on the guest room floor, or the 11 minutes in the truck. None of this is in the form because the form has 14 fields, and none of those 14 fields are for this. I fill in the fields. I review the form. I submit it. The system logs the submission at 17:31. I open my notebook. I turn to today's page. I read what I wrote. Margin, unresolved. I read, margin is wide enough. I have been working in that margin for 11 months. I know how to work in margins. I close the notebook. I pick up the radio. I call in my end-of-day position. I give my call sign. I give the sector. I say, field assessment complete, all monitoring points logged, data submitted, standing by for next task. The coordination center gives me the next task. I write it in the notebook. I write the time. I begin.